Welcome back. In just under 2 hours from now, Ron DeSantis will take to the stage in Virginia. He's appearing at a Christians United for Israel summit as he tries to make inroads on Donald Trump, while behind the scenes, DeSantis is cutting costs and trying to reassure nervous donors after his campaign burned through nearly $8 million in his first 6 weeks as a candidate. According to a source familiar with his campaign, DeSantis has also fired about a dozen staffers. Let's discuss what all this might mean with NBC's Ali Vitale, who joins us from Arlington, Virginia, where DeSantis will be speaking today. Also with us, former Republican Congressman from Florida, Carlos Curbelo, and former Democratic Congressman from New York, Max Rose. All right, great to have everybody here. Ali, take us a little deeper into the numbers and behind the scenes of the DeSantis campaign, if you will.
Yeah, this is not the first time that we've seen the DeSantis team sort of playing defense. And I will tell you, we're in a pretty quiet room here, so I'm going to do my best golf whisper for you as I give this assessment. Because, look, when you talk to DeSantis allies, what they would tell you is that they felt good about the tens of millions that they were able to bring in this second quarter. But when you look at the fact that they're such a high burn rate now, to the fact that they are offloading about a dozen or so mid-level staffers, it's notable, especially as we're starting to see donors really question whether or not this is the campaign that they thought it was going to be at the outset. Several of them speaking to our colleagues here at NBC News, saying that this campaign just hasn't caught fire in the way that they thought that it would. You see that not just in the way that this fundraising shook out, with DeSantis maxing out on so many donors so early on in the process, but then also in the way that he's actually having to start offloading staffers as he's not gaining any steam in the polls. I want to just pull up for you so that you can see a sense of just how many more staffers the DeSantis team had than his counterparts. 92 people, just shy of 100 on his national payroll. Then, of course, you see 50, 40, the rest of the field up there. And look, for someone like DeSantis, who had been compared even before he got in this race to former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who ran such a top-heavy campaign that he had to drop out just a few months after getting in the race, this is not the headline that you want to see if you are DeSantis and the Florida governor's allies, who are trying to buck that comparison and show that he has a campaign that can win and can be in it for the long haul.
Well done with the golf whisper or the Wimbledon voice. I don't know, whichever you would like to call it. And calibrated to the audience level behind you. Well done, Ali Vitale. Thank you for all the great reporting there. Congressman Curbelo, let me turn to you here. The latest polling shows DeSantis still ahead of the Republican pack in second, but far behind former President Trump, of course. And our reporting is that he's also, burned through all this money that donors have provided, and many of them having donated the max already. What does he have to show for all that money?
Well, and I think it's important to underline Ali's point. The DeSantis campaign started off almost as an incumbent campaign, or the campaign of a favorite. A lot of staff, a lot of people on the ground, but it turns out that he's a challenger, and he's in distant second, certainly ahead of the rest of the Republican field, but way behind Donald Trump. So his campaign is now adapting to this reality, and it's now starting to organize as an insurgent campaign, as a campaign that's challenging a very strong incumbent. In order to do that, you have to conserve resources. You can't be so top-heavy. You can't have that high overhead, because you will just run out of gas eventually. So this is the DeSantis campaign recognizing that its initial theory of how this would all work out, of how his candidacy would play out, did not come to be. So they're retooling now. The good news for them is they have a lot of resources. He has high name ID. If Donald Trump happens to stumble, he's still in a good position to capture some of that Trump support. But this is a very different reality than the one the DeSantis campaign was hoping for when they launched in May.
Congressman Rose, I have to imagine, though, if you are one of those funders of his campaign, you're not real happy.
Not at all. You're nervous. And quite frankly, the DeSantis campaign knew that people were going to feel this way. They did not take this decision lightly. This is a sign of weakness. This is a sign of an absence of momentum. And just as momentum begets momentum in politics, the opposite is also true. But underlying all of this is a cold political reality that all the DeSantis campaign has done is make bad decision after bad decision. They thought that they could go to the right of Donald Trump. That is a political space that does not exist. Can you actually imagine a Republican primary voter going up to Ron DeSantis and saying, you know, I was for Trump, and then you banned abortions in Florida, and I decided to come to you. I was for Trump, and then you waged war on Mickey Mouse, and I decided to come to you. That person doesn't exist. And as a consequence of that horribly stupid political decision, they now realize that they're spending more money than they're taking in and they're cutting costs as a result.
In fact, Trump is up over DeSantis in Florida by like 20 points, according to the latest polling. Let me ask you, Congressman Rose, though, about Senator Joe Manchin, who is making some headlines right now. He's going to be headlining an event tonight that's part of this no-label third-party candidate group. Do you think he's serious? Do you think he might be considering a presidential run as a third-party candidate?
You know, I think that he really enjoys people thinking that he is serious right now. I think that he is a serious contender to hold on to his seat in the Senate. I don't see him necessarily undertaking an independent bid for the presidency, nor do I, quite frankly, think anyone will take that ticket. What we're going to see, though, over the course of the coming months, though, is a lot of moving and shaking on the part of No Labels, talking about the need for someone to take up that middle moderate space, and what that actually presents.
Doesn't President Biden take up that moderate space?
That's exactly the point that I was going to make. Exactly the point. Joe Biden, the president that signed the CHIPS bill, the infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, these are all moderate, for the most part, bipartisan bills, unprecedented gun violence prevention legislation. This is an opportunity for the Biden campaign to stand up and say, if you want a pragmatic, bipartisan leader, I'm your proven guy.
Congressman Curbelo, if Manchin does enter the race, is that best case scenario for the GOP, that prospect that he could siphon votes from President Biden, or is there too much of a risk that he could appeal to disaffected Republicans, too?
Yeah, and I think there are a number of theories on what a third-party candidacy could do to the race this year. I presume that if Joe Manchin runs, he would be running with a Republican as his vice presidential candidate. And that could certainly just scramble things. I will say this. I mean, all third-party candidacies in the United States are destined to fail. That's just how our politics have worked for a very long time. However, if there is a year where a third-party candidate could actually have a chance, it would be this cycle on. I mean, you look at the disapproval numbers for both Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and extreme partisans hate to hear this, but it's true. Most Americans reject both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They're both older candidates. If Joe Manchin can find a young Republican to win with, you never know. Again, the odds are against him, but if there's a cycle to try it, this one would be it.
I know you want to respond. I see you shaking your head, but I gotta go. So save it for next time. Former Congressman Max Rose and Carlos Curbelo, really appreciate you both. Thanks so much for the conversation today.